The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
The ship be sinking. No, that wasn't said about the Commanders. That was said by Michael Ray Richardson over 40 years ago about the New Jersey Nets. Michael Ray Richardson has passed away. We'll pay homage to him as a player and what he went through and what he overcame. We'll see if the Commanders can overcome what has been an absolute disaster. 5 straight losses, the last 4 by 21 or more. Let's see if not only change of scenery, but change of country can do something for an organization that is just absolutely reeling right now. Dan Quinn has already spoken today. No, he didn't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do it. It's the time change in Madrid. And so they've already completed practice today. He's already held his news conference, and it's on to tomorrow as they prepare for the Sunday game against the Miami Dolphins. And what Quinn is banking on to get out of this skid is the road trip.
Christ. Otter. This is ridiculous.
What are we going to do?
Road trip.
Road trip, road trip, road trip. Well, I don't know how it worked out when they took the Flounders Brothers Lincoln Continental and went to Emerson's, or was it Emerson College, whatever it was. It was a fictional school, and had the fictional date and all that stuff and everything that followed. As for what happens to the Commanders, much different than Animal House. It is definitely a change of venue. And as Quinn opened up his news conference today, he had a pretty much given an instruction manual to reporters not familiar with covering the NFL.
For those of you covering the team, for the first time, a week layout in an NFL game usually consists of a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, Saturday. And so the Wednesday is the first day of putting in a game plan, some practice against one another to get your skills right. Thursday and Friday, more of the situational work, third downs and red zone, and then you tie the whole thing together again Saturday in preparation for the game. So I just wanted to give you that layout of what an NFL week typically looks like.
And even fans, we know that how that's working, but it was apparently helpful for those who are not used to covering the NFL.
Hi, Coach.
Hello.
Welcome to Madrid, and thanks for explaining us how the week works for an
You're very
NFL
welcome.
team. How do you think this trip overseas in a tough season can help you to build chemistry for a strong finish and maybe to carry over to next year?
Yes.
Being a few miles away from home, and then if you can have a few words about Marcus and his role last year, maybe mentoring if he did Jaden, and this year taking over as a seasoned veteran and I think doing a good job. Thanks, Coach.
You're very welcome. The first part of the question I'd like to hit on, and I actually told the team that today, is as a group, we're coming here to actually get stronger. And some of that is connection, some of that is our practice and the way that we can do that together, but all of it will be done together. It'll be seen in the game on Sunday of those things that we address and how we go there. So that's the first part of us getting stronger together. Can we, bring the competition at practice? Can we get the communication that we want? Can we get the skills and the technique aligned like we wanted? But that was the main goal, to get connected and actually get stronger during this week here together, and we think we can do that. As far as Marcus goes as a quarterback, not only was he a leader in the quarterback room, he was also a leader on the team. And you feel his support. He puts in all of the work behind the scenes, and all of his teammates know that. He challenges one another for his teammates at practice with his skill, with his technique. But I think you feel his support the most, and that's where, as a leader, I felt his impact, not just with Jaden from a mentoring role, all that's significant, but it's with other players as well. And he's certainly one that we count on, and it's times like now that this is why Marcus is here, and this is the moment, and so he's really ready for that challenge.
Well, he better be ready. It's a 5-game losing streak. Marcus Mariota starting on Sunday. A couple of injury updates. We knew that Terry McLaurin wasn't going to play. He's there. He's going through drills. Noah Brown is there. I don't believe he's eligible to come off of the injured reserve list yet. I think he's got to miss 4 games, and I don't think he's done that since they put him on IR, but maybe there's a chance that Noah Brown is going to play on Sunday. Nobody asked about that in the news conference, so I'll be interested in the follow-up on that tomorrow. And then Will Harris, who broke his leg seeming like a month ago, he's got the 21-day window open, meaning that they have 3 weeks to activate him. I can't imagine that he's going to play Sunday, and then they got the bye week coming up, but maybe there's a possibility when they take on Denver on the 30th, he'll be on the field. More questions from the in-town media in Madrid this morning or this afternoon, however you look at it with the time change. And the question about Daron Payne was brought up.
Hi, Coach. Carlos Mateos from FNU Services. You were talking before about the frustration you are feeling sometimes. Did you talk with Payne after the incident of the other day? How is feeling? How is he feeling? How is feeling about that incident? And also, I will ask you about Chris Rodriguez. He has a problem in the shoulder the other day. He will be able to play on Sunday. Thank you.
You're very welcome. First, let's talk about Daron and Payne. So, yes, we actually had a chance to visit about that. He also had a chance to visit with the NFL and to, state what he did. Hey, this is wrong. This is what I wanted to, express to them and make sure he knew that. This player had only been penalized, one time for the season, so it had been out of character for him to do that. So he wanted to be able to, to express his remorse, for that incident. As far as Chris Rodriguez at running back, he did injure his shoulder in the game, but he is going to be able to play this week. We'll start the practice today, and we're excited. Chris has been was a captain in our last game and is one of our more consistent players. So, we'll lean in on him. He's somebody we all count on. Yeah,
first Rodriguez. I think he's going to take over as the number 1 back. Bill Krosky-Merritt, a nice story beginning of the year, but the fact of the matter is he's averaging like, less than 3 yards a carry, it seems like, in the last few games. Not much. And the explosiveness that he showed, he moves well inside the tackles, but either they've figured him out or his production, for whatever reason, has just dropped off. So I would expect to see a lot more of Chris Rodriguez on Sunday. As far as the Payne story goes, there is an update on that. And Javon Kinlaw said after the game that Amon-Ra St. Brown actually took the first swing at Daron Payne. Now, Payne got caught, and that's the way it always goes in the NFL. The one who retaliates almost always gets flagged or, in this case, kicked out of the game. But there was some video that was posted by J.P. Finley of NBC Sports Washington, and it shows, in fact, that a couple of plays earlier, Amon-Ra St. Brown did take a swing at Payne. The referee did not flag him, got in between them, didn't flag him. If there was a flag, I wonder if there would have been that retaliation. I think it came from Amon-Ra St. Brown chirping at him. And so Kinlaw was right that there was the first, I don't know if he landed, but the first punch was thrown by Amon-Ra St. Brown. Doesn't excuse what Payne did in getting kicked out of the game. There's also this, and the league said something, or the source said something about this, that there was also with Kinlaw, he bumped the referee and all that, stuff that was going on with Payne getting kicked out of the game, and he was not punished. He wasn't thrown out. They did throw an unsportsmanlike conduct flag on him, but he was not thrown out of the game like Payne was. And the source within the NFL said, they don't like to throw out 2 guys in a row. Doesn't I don't know. I guess it's not really an eye for an eye, but maybe the wrong guy got thrown out of the game, because it's almost automatic. If you bump a referee, you're out of the game. And he also may have gotten a 1-game suspension. So it's quite possible that, Payne, if there was a flag thrown on St. Brown for throwing the punch, that Payne wouldn't have gotten thrown out of the game, but Kinlaw might have. So either way, they're down a defensive lineman going into this game. And, it's Miami. They run the ball well. They had, I think, 197 yards rushing against Buffalo on Sunday. So they got to find some way to stop the run, because they have been a sieve with that. They gave up 246, I believe, on Sunday against Detroit, and they've got to find a way to stop the run, as does the University of Maryland. And I have been a Mike Locksley supporter, still am. Don't think he's going to be fired at the end of the season, but they're staring down the barrel of another 4-win year. They started it off 4-0, got the big win over Wisconsin, got a lot of people's hopes up, including myself as a season ticket holder, and they actually had a nice lead. They should have been able to close it out against Washington. Weren't able to do that to get to 5-0. They had a lead on Nebraska. They couldn't close that out at home. They got their doors blown off by Indiana, and then Rutgers handled them easily, 35-20. It was a lopsided game. And so if you've been watching, like I have, these Tuesday news conferences that Locksley does, there's not a lot of tough questioning that takes place. And when you get off to a 4-0 start, there aren't many tough questions to be asked. But now as they get ready to play at Illinois, a team that's already bowl eligible at 6-3, actually, they've been a disappointment themselves, isn't that they were the 12th ranked team in the country going into the season. They also got clobbered by Indiana, but they look to be a better team. And certainly 4-6 is in play right now. And Locksley is starting to face questions like this.
Do you feel like you're coaching for your job over these last 3 weeks?
No.
No. Do you feel like you deserve to keep this job?
Yes.
Why?
I'm the head coach at the University of Maryland.
Okay, so that's fact. He is the head coach at the University of Maryland until they tell him he's not. There's a buyout, and I did see something the other day that the buyout gets cut down significantly if they wait until December 8th to let him go. I don't know whether that means that puts them behind the 8 ball and trying to hire a new coach. I don't know how that works. I don't know if in fact that's true. That's just a report that I saw. But the buyout number that I have seen printed a couple of times is $13.5 million. And the various reporting is that the boosters aren't going to come up with the money to do that. So likely he's going to come back for next year. But, things could change over the last 3 games. And this was more, I don't want to say chippiness, but this was just a little bit contentious with Locksley as he was questioned further yesterday.
With Thanksgiving approaching, what are you thankful for?
For being a head football coach at the University of Maryland.
And then, last week, Jalen and Isaiah were talking up there, and they were saying that they're basically playing for you. How gratifying is it when your players say something like that?
I don't like that. I'm a big boy. I've been a big boy a long time. I've done a lot harder things in my life than deal with a 5-game losing streak and have to answer questions about what I've done. If you could do research, I'll tell you, if you could read, you could have knowledge, and you'll see why the question you ask, you'll find the answer, but you're going to have to read. And so when you hear those things, it's encouraging because that means I've had a positive impact on the lives of those 2 guys. And that's doing good work. I'm here to do good work.
Is it possible that could be a motivation for them? In terms of, hey, we want to play well so that
we don't do
Mike
external motivations in this program, man. It's a bond. I mean, they know I'm gonna coach them up until the day I'm not allowed to, and they're gonna play hard for me until the day they are done playing for me. And those are the type of bonds I make in this business. And again, I've done the good work throughout 37 years of it.
Yeah, the message: get off my back. I know what I'm doing. And he also knows the deal, and he knows he could get fired, and he knows that with a $13.5 million buyout, not that he's probably already financially secure, he probably is, but that would make him even more financially secure, and he would get another job in a second as an assistant. A very good offensive coach and an excellent recruiter. Excellent recruiter. Now, you can look at his coaching record and say, yeah, he's not getting it done as a head coach. But I think you also have the Jim Smith factor. That's the new athletic director. And he probably wants to give him a little bit more of a runway here. There's also a deal being worked out with private equity, which Maryland would get an influx of cash to boost recruiting and so forth. But one thing he's done, and I think this is a good thing when he's talking about his team, he's no longer talking about a young team. He says we're inexperienced. Okay, but that's no longer an excuse in college football. because you look at teams across the country that are at the top, and I'm not talking about Ohio State, which has been a football factory for a long time, but you look at, everybody's looking at Indiana as, how do you do this? Well, you get a coach who was successful at a lower level, doesn't cost a lot to play the game. You pay him $4.2 million a year, which is nothing. And then he exceeds all expectations by producing the first 2 10-win seasons in the history of the university since they've been playing football for, 120 years or however long it's been. And then you bump them up to a ridiculous amount of money. But, some of that's being paid for what they did last year in making the playoff, and they're a shoe-in to make it. In fact, the college football rankings just came out last night. They stay at number 2 despite the close win at Penn State, and Texas A&M is at 3. But, 2 more games to go. A lot can change, and there's a huge game coming up on Black Friday, Texas and Texas A&M. It's been a long time since both those teams have been in this kind of position. Texas has 2 losses. Texas A&M has no losses, and it's in Austin. So that's going to be an enormous game on Friday of Thanksgiving weekend. Let me just throw this in, a little baseball here. The Nationals, God bless them, the other day they hired a coach who's 50 years old, Michael Johns. He is the Ulta Cocker now of the entire organization, outside of course, Mark Lerner, who's in his 70s. But he was the first base coach for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's going to be the bench coach for the 33-year-old manager, Blake Butera, who's never managed above A ball. The general manager of the team is 32 years old. Okay, Paul Taboni maybe hiring people he's comfortable with. It doesn't seems like it's almost like he's hiring frat brothers right out of college. But okay. So now they have a new pitching coach. The pitching coach went to Georgetown University. He graduated from Georgetown in 2017. The pants I'm wearing today are older than 2017. I know you make jokes about my wardrobe. A lot of people do, but 2017, he's 30 years old. His name is Simon Matthews. Simon Matthews, 30 years old, will be the pitching coach. They must have several pitchers on the staff who are older than 30. I'm looking at the roster, but I'm sure they do. And maybe even Max Scherzer comes back for a farewell tour. He's in his 40s. But the one thing that does make this intriguing is he is bilingual, and so the translator part of communicating with the pitching staff sometimes doesn't speak English could be helpful. He's also at least had major league experience. He's spent the last 5 years with the Reds, the first 4 in player development before becoming the assistant pitching coach in 2025. But again, this is going to be a criticism. It can't not be. They did hire a catching coordinator who's in his 40s, Bobby Wilson, not the Bobby Wilson who was once a first-round draft pick of the Redskins. You may remember that. Bobby Wilson would be it's over 30 years ago, so he'd be in his 50s. But this is Bobby Wilson from the Texas Rangers. He's their catching coordinator, 42. So to recap, 33-year-old manager, 32-year-old general manager, 31-year-old assistant general manager, now 30-year-old pitching coach to go along with at least a 50-year-old bench coach and a 42-year-old catching coordinator. Okay. And the other thing, I don't know what these guys make, but generally, young guys are cheap. Going on the cheap may work out. Theo Epstein was a kid when he finally broke the curse with the Red Sox. So maybe, but I got to be skeptical. I have to be skeptical. I'm 67 years old. I got to be skeptical about that. Can't even say skeptical. All right, let's get to the Maryland basketball. We'll do that coming up. Buzz Williams has got a team that's still very much a work in progress. We'll hear what he had to say after the win over Alcorn State last night as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
No, Juan Dixon, who spent 5 years at Maryland, isn't walking through that door. Julian Reese, a recent player who spent 4 years at Maryland, is not walking through that door. It's a whole new world in college basketball and a whole new world of college basketball in College Park. Buzz Williams is the new coach. He has a completely new team, completely new team. As a matter of fact, the most experienced player on the roster, and I put that in air quotes, is Payne, who was their leading scorer, 22 points last night in a very sloppy 20-point win over Alcorn State. They had 17 turnovers in that game. But Payne has been at Maryland longer than any other player on the roster, any scholarship player, I should say. He signed April 2nd, right? So May, June, July, August, September, October. Wow, he's been here for 7 months. 7 months at the University of Maryland, and that is their most Maryland experienced player. He signed with Buzz Williams on April 2nd. A couple of other names you might want to know. Miles Rice is likely to be the point guard. He's a redshirt junior, had transferred from Indiana. And then there's another one of his guys, Solomon Washington, who played with Buzz Williams at Texas A&M. He's a 6'7" senior. Plays a lot of very good defense, they say. Started 23 of 32 games for Texas A&M last season. So those are some names that you might want to familiarize yourself if you're watching Maryland basketball. I hearken the days when I could remember 4 or 5 players coming back every year, but that doesn't work anymore. As I say, sloppy, 17 turnovers. 3-point shooting was a joke. They were 8 for 28. They did get to the free throw line, missed 7 free throws, 20 of 27. But we're 3 games into the regular season, plus, I think they played 2 exhibition games, and they've been working out together since the summer. They started, I believe, in June. But Buzz Williams still trying to figure it out.
I think the consistency that we're looking for will have to come from practice, not just from the games. And I think that we're trying to make sure that we measure the same things in practice that we measure in the game so that they understand the growth that we need from them. And I think as it's happening in real time, we're probably not at the point in week 2 where we're allowed to give grace on if you're not meeting the standard of accountability on whatever we're trying to accomplish, we need to make a sub. And so some of that happened tonight. We had more stamina for longer periods of time, stamina mentally, stamina emotionally, stamina physically. So there was some growth, but in regards to the analytics and the things that we want to hold them accountable to, I think it's in year 1, week 2, I'm not concerned with our rotation yet.
It's week 2. These are the kind of comments you usually hear like after the first couple of practices. And the whole practice schedule has changed. Lefty Driesell invented the midnight mile when practice could officially start. It used to be that the college basketball season got rolling like Thanksgiving weekend. And the first time you were able to practice was October 15th. That's what started Midnight Madness, but it started with a midnight mile in 1971. And Lefty Driesell, always playing all the angles, the old left-hander, looked at the schedule and said, well, if it's going to be on the 15th, that means right after midnight, it's the 15th. So this was before the football stadium, which is now called CQ Field. It was Bird Stadium in those days, and didn't have lights. Maryland didn't install lights in the football stadium probably till the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe even later than that, and probably the 80s. And it had no lights. So Lefty's idea was that they were going to follow the NCAA rules, that you couldn't start practice until the 15th, but at 12:01 a.m., he had his team run a mile around the track, and they used to have a track around Bird Stadium, too. They don't have that anymore. But the players would lined up, and they were all timed in the mile, and you see them, coming across the finish line in these Chuck Taylors. They weren't even running shoes. But there are pictures of Tom McMillan and Len Elmore huffing and puffing across the finish line at whatever it was, 12:07 or whatever the time was that they ran the mile. And they were off and running. And then the following year, they had a guard named Mo Howard, and Howard said, Coach, why don't we have a practice at midnight? And he said, that's a great idea. So they arranged to have a practice at Cole Fieldhouse right after midnight on the 15th. That would have been 1972. And word got around campus that they were having this, and I think they had like 7,000 or 8,000 kids in there watching them practice at midnight on the 15th of October, the 14th going into the 15th. And from then on, that's what started the whole Midnight Madness thing. That's kind of gone away because there's really no official start to practice. And good thing, because you're bringing in all these new guys. You can't have them start practicing like 2 weeks before they start to play. And now the season starts earlier and earlier. It's well underway in October. Whereas even like 1993, the famous game between Georgetown and Maryland at the old Capitol Center, that was on Black Friday. That was Thanksgiving weekend, and that was the opening game of the season. Totally different. All right, as far as what he wants to do, who he wants to start, I think we can be certain that Pharrell Payne is going to be a starter. He's the guy that's delivering points. And as I say, the likely point guard is going to be Miles Rice. But after that, it sounds like Williams is still very much deciding with what he wants to do and apparently not basing it on position.
We're trying to find 5 guys that will play incredibly hard and then try to find the next right guy that can sub in for the first of the 5 that needs a break. We haven't figured out, oh, he's this, he's that. We really would like to get to where we could have 7.5, 8.5 tough, smart, dependable guys that are all pulling in the same direction, regardless of position. I think sometimes coaches, particularly me, we try to fit round holes in a square peg, and the most important hole that we have to address is, can we play really, really hard and all care about the same things? And how many possessions in a row can that group do it before we need a sub?
Hey, look, there are basketball players and there are guys who aren't as good basketball players, and you want your best 5 on the floor. And again, I go back to Lefty with the 3-guard offense. God, he wanted to have Moses Malone stick around at Maryland for the 74-75 season, but Moses went to one class and then signed for millions of dollars with the ABA. So Lefty went to a 3-guard offense because he had, with Brad Davis and John Lucas and Mo Howard, 3 of the best players on the team, and he ran a 3-guard offense. And he had Owen Brown, I think, coming back that year. Tom Roy, I think, played center, and that's how they did it. And so I would think that, you want to have your best 5 on the floor regardless of position. I don't think people get caught up on that anymore anyway, because when you got Victor Wembanyama, who's 7'5" and shoots threes, I mean, what is a big man anymore? What is Magic Johnson changed the perception of the point guard, 6'9" point guard. So, yeah, just get your best 5 players out on the floor, the ones who play the hardest, and it sounds like he wants to have a rotation of about 8 guys. Mark Turgeon used to play a lot of guys. He used to play 10. I think Gary used to play 10, depending on the team that he had, depending on the depth. But sounds like he's looking for 8 guys. And really, since they haven't played together very much, yeah, find your 8, get some continuity, and then see where you're at once you get to the conference season, which will start sometime next month. They are going to play at Marquette on Saturday. That's one of Buzz Williams' stops. That's a 2 o'clock game on Saturday. Obviously, competition is going to be a lot different than it was last night against Alcorn State, and they got to clean things up. You can't have 17 turnovers, and you can't miss 23s if you're going to beat a team like that on the road. Speaking of missing shots, you probably are familiar with what happened to the Wizards the other night. They're in Houston tonight, but they played in Detroit on Monday night. And they were up. This is what they do. They were up 13 in the fourth quarter. They were poised to close this game out with 1.9 seconds left to go. Free throw was missed. A 3-pointer was hit to send the game into overtime. And they eventually lost 137-135 to the Detroit Pistons. But the highlight of the box score was Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham has helped to turn that team around. They were in the toilet with the Wizards just a couple of years ago. Now they're one of the best teams in the East. and he's had a lot to do with it. Cunningham's been a star player, and obviously he's got the green light to shoot whenever he wants to do it because he shot the ball 45 times. He had 46 points on 45 shots. He missed 31 shots. And they were coming off a back-to-back playing on the road the night before, so it's a tired team. And he was, I guess, frisky enough to hoist up 45 shots, missing 31 of them. Most missed in a game since Rick Barry in 1967. And that was an era where shooting percentages weren't as good, and Barry was a hell of a shooter, but for whatever reason that night he wasn't knocking him down. Reggie Miller yesterday, a great shooter in his day, was on with Dan Patrick, now an analyst with NBC, and he was asked, what's the most shots that you ever squeezed off in a game?
It's the most points I ever scored in a game, 57 versus Charlotte, and I believe I took 27 shots. And I was literally exhausted after that game. But that was nothing. When you look at like MJ, Kobe, Carmelo, those volume scores, they put up a lot of attempts. I was more on the efficiency side. I think during the course of a game, if I got up 18 shots, I thought that was pretty good because a few of those were threes. I was getting to the free throw lines. That's how I got my, 22 to 30 was just being a little bit more efficient.
I got you with 29 shots in that game.
29. Okay, 29 in that game. 29.
Yeah.
Okay.
16
Exhausted.
to 29. Yeah.
Exhausted.
Well, that's what I tell people when I would see Iverson, as small as he is, but he had to put up at least 25 shots a game. That was their offense went through him. I don't know how, Mike and Kobe, those guys who you knew they had to shoot, they knew they had to shoot, and to put up those shots every single night. I mean, imagine if I said to you, you got to put up 29 shots a game.
No way. There's just no way. I mean, people don't understand the physical toll it takes to score at an elite level in the NBA. Now, granted, and think about this. He had 45 field goal attempts. Remember, Cade got fouled on a few shots too. So that easily could have been like 50 field goal attempts that he was attempting. And this is coming off a game the night before. So think about the exhaustion that he's going through. He took a hard foul in that game. But at the end of the day, you highlighted this. They won the game in overtime. And what a game that was. I think they're up to 7 games in a row now. It's one of those sneaky stories in this Eastern Conference that really no one is talking about because they got off to such a slow start this season.
Kobe took 50 shots. That was his last game, I think, against the Jets. 50.
Wow. People don't understand.
At the end of his career, he's taken 50 against the Jets.
Off an Achilles injury.
Yes.
Last game of your, you know what, but that I can see because, look, if I'm going to go out, this is my last game. This is my target goal. 50. I'm going for 50 field goal attempts.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe's going to get released for being a ball hog. It was his last game. Lakers weren't going to the playoffs, so he squeezed off 50 shots. But listen to Reggie Miller. He knows what it's like to put up a high volume of shots, and it's not as easy as it seems. I saw Mark Aguirre in Dallas. It's either his first or second year, and he put up 50 shots in a game. That's a lot of shots. And they weren't, I don't think many of them, if any of them, were three-pointers because people didn't really shoot that many in those days. But 50 shots in a game, 50 shots, 45, and to miss 31 of them, my God. Well, that's what the coaches say. If you're a shooter, keep shooting. And it obviously worked out for the Detroit Pistons and Cade Cunningham, who wound up with 45 points and helped to push the Pistons over the edge to beat the Wizards in overtime. Not that beating the Wizards is any great shakes, but it was a game that you wouldn't have expected them to win, falling behind by 13 in the fourth quarter and being dog-tired after coming off a road trip and playing a back-to-back. So we'll see what the Wizards do tonight against Houston. I don't have high expectations, but you never know. It's the NBA. Coming up, Michael Ray Richardson has passed away at the age of 70, author of one of the great quotes of all time, "The ship be sinking."
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
You want to feel old. June is the 40th anniversary of the Len Bias tragedy. Yeah, hard to believe that. 1986. And if you were around here then and even in the years that followed, you remember what a malaise this was. It crushed the entire Maryland athletic program. It wasn't just that Lefty Driesell was forced out and then Bob Wade, inexperienced, never coached above the high school level, comes in to coach Maryland, clearly in over his head. But it trickled down to other sports. Bobby Ross, the football coach who had good teams, left. It was just, this black cloud that was over the school and over the whole area, and it's one of the biggest sports tragedies ever. I mean, did you think of a life that was snuffed out and a life with so much talent? Digger Phelps, I think, said it best when asked to describe Len Bias. He said, "Jordan with size." Just think about that. And he's a better shooter in college than Jordan. They had some great battles. Jordan had better teams at North Carolina, but to think that they would have matched up in the Eastern Conference, likely in the Eastern Conference Finals a number of times. Jordan, the star of the Bulls, and probably with Larry Bird getting older, that Len Bias would have taken over as the best player on the Celtics eventually if he tracked the same way. And in one horrible night, he died of a cocaine overdose. And sadly, in that period of time in basketball, even though we were starting to learn more and more about the effects of cocaine, it was a problem in the league. It was known as a rich person's drug. It was expensive. There was even a song that came out about that time, "If you want to ride the white horse," and it was delivering the message like, "Oh, don't do heroin," because heroin is known in some circles as the horse. Ride the white horse. That would be cocaine. And players in whatever sport it was, we had a player a week after Len Bias died for the Cleveland Browns, Don Rogers, I believe was his name. Same thing, cocaine overdose. It was just a horrible period of time in the mid '80s with drugs, and we didn't know as much as we know now about cocaine. And the people at that age think they're invincible. Oh, I can use it and I won't get addicted to it. Well, there was not only the death of Len Bias at that time, but there was a player by the name of Roy Tarpley. Roy Tarpley played for the Dallas Mavericks. He was 7 feet tall in an era when big men were of huge value. Played at Michigan, was an all-star with the Mavericks, had great numbers, averaged 12 points and 10 rebounds a game for good teams. The Los Angeles Lakers offered James Worthy, Hall of Fame player, one of the great players of all time, offered James Worthy to Dallas for Tarpley, and Dallas said no. That's how good he was. But Roy Tarpley had a cocaine problem, and eventually he was kicked out of the league for 3 years. Out in 91, did return to the Mavericks in 1994 and still had skills, was averaging 12 and 8, playing 24 minutes a game. But he had problems with alcohol, and that was a violation because he had previous failed drug tests and had been suspended, that he was kicked out of the league again, wound up playing in Europe, and died at the age of 50 of cirrhosis of the liver. Just horrible stories from that time. Michael Ray Richardson was also a very, very great player at that time, and had serious drug problems. Now, there's two surprises for me with his life. Not that 70 is necessarily old, but the fact that he lived to be 70 and died of prostate cancer, not of the effects of drugs, somewhat of a surprise to me. And I wouldn't say pleasant surprise, but, seeing how his life was playing out in his late 20s and early 30s, he didn't think it would come to this. He also became a coach later on, coached in the CBA, and turned his life around. One of his daughters is a physician. He's got a son playing professional soccer. With his family life, apparently he turned things around as well. And he was big guard. He came out of University of Montana, and was the 4th pick of the 1978 draft. He was actually drafted ahead of Larry Bird, although I would asterisk that because Larry Bird was a junior eligible and he wasn't going to play in the NBA. And good for Red Auerbach for taking a flyer on him at number 6. And he wound up, being Larry Bird with the Celtics. But Richardson was great, and he was a big guard, 6'5". And remember, Magic Johnson in 1978 was a freshman at Michigan State, was not yet in the NBA. And Michael Ray Richardson kind of changed the mold. Magic at 6'9", obviously, bigger, but Richardson had led the league in assists Magic's rookie year. Magic averaged 7 assists a game. Michael Ray averaged 10 assists a game. He was an all-star and was going to be one of the great stars in the league. But then, you started hearing things about him, and not that they were testing for drugs at that point, but there was concern on the part of the Knicks, even though he was tracking to be one of their great players. So they traded him to the Golden State Warriors, and they just didn't dump him because they got Bernard King in return. So Golden State saw that there was something there that they wanted to take advantage of. I guess he was like 27 or 28 at that time. And, they saw that, no, we got some real problems here, and they had to unload him. And there was only one team that was willing to do that. That was a team in the New York area coached by Larry Brown. This is part of a documentary that was done several years ago by Chris Rock. He narrates it, and it's Whatever Became of Michael Ray Richardson, and this kind of sums up what was going on with him in the early 80s.
By the time Golden State was trying to trade Michael Ray in the middle of the 83 season, there weren't a lot of coaches willing to gamble on him. So the last place I thought he'd end up was back in the New York area. But Larry Brown, the New Jersey Nets coach, had known Michael when he was growing up in Denver. He gave him a chance.
I think it's great. I'm looking forward. I know it's going to be a challenge, but I think I'm ready for it.
The question was it too late?
There was a big drop-off. Physically, he wasn't able to do the things he had done before.
The Nets had Tim Bassett, a former player, keep an eye on Michael.
I would see Michael at 7:30 in the morning. And he would say, I'm not going to practice. I'm going back to New York to buy more drugs. And I jump in the car because I said, Michael, you can't. And at some point in time, he would eventually get himself together and say, all right, I'll go.
Larry Brown realized he had to do something in a hurry.
I drove him to a clinic in New Jersey in his Volkswagen. And he told the doctor that he really didn't have a serious problem. He just was freebasing a couple times a week. And I didn't have much of a response.
Yeah, I would think so. He did try to get himself straightened out in the summer of '83. He went to rehab for the second time, came out in August, said he was free from depression and addiction. But 2 months later, he disappeared from the Nets training camp, later admitted he'd suffered a relapse. He refused to enter a treatment facility. The Nets placed him on waivers that October, but he was then reinstated in December. He did go to rehab, and they put him back on the roster. The rules were a little bit different then. They stiffened up over time, and actually he winds up in the 83-84 season, plays 82 games of that season, was named the NBA's Comeback Player of the Year. He averaged 20 points a game, which was a career high, and looked like, okay, everything is back on track here. We can invest in a guy who's one of the top point guards in the NBA. And in September of 1985, he signed a 4-year, $3 million contract. I know that's chicken feed now, but 40 years ago, that was good money. And he signed with the Nets, and then he appeared in an anti-drug video for the NBA. Hey, I've been through the tunnel, and now I'm out of it. And then in December of 1985, he disappeared for 3 days following a Christmas party. He admitted to a relapse and was sent to a California rehab clinic. He finally returned to the Nets in January of '86, but failed a urinalysis test that followed a month later and was banned by the NBA for at least 2 years, reinstated at '88, but never played in the league again. If I'm not mistaken, I saw his last game of the NBA. The word was out that he was going to be suspended, and it was a game at the Capitol Center against the Bullets. That was the last game that he ever played. He wound up, playing in Europe and even played in the CBA played in France, Italy, the whole thing. But then this was a real surprise that he was a coach. There's a guy who was a coach's nightmare off the court, not necessarily on the court, but off the court, a nightmare. Coached in the CBA and the Premier League and won 3 titles in 3 different leagues, as well as the National Basketball League of Canada. Then he retired to Oklahoma, and he wrote a book just a year ago, actually changed the spelling of his first name, M-I-C instead of A-E-L, E-A-L, and then wrote the book Banned, How I Squandered an All-Star NBA Career Before Finding My Redemption. And, it's another one of those great what-if stories. He still had an 8-year career that most people would be proud of, but we were cheated as to what Michael Ray Richardson could have become. He could have become an enormous star with the New York Knicks. And think about this. Think about how long the Knicks have been playing in the NBA. He is second on the all-time list with the Knicks for most triple-doubles. Second in Knicks history with 18 triple-doubles. So, I mean, I imagine the other one's Walt Frazier. I should have looked that up. But they had guys who played there for 10, 12 years, and Richardson was there for 4, and he's second with 18 in Knicks history. And, the fact that he lived to be 70 is great. I mean, I think that's a redemption there. But it's the hold that this drug must have held for him. I mean, think of the people who squandered, like Roy Tarpley. Think of the ultimate tragedy, like Len Bias. Now, I don't know whether Bias was addicted or not. The narrative coming out of it was, it was just one night. Some even said he tried it for the first time. If you saw one of the many documentaries that was done on one of the police officers who investigated, said, no, this was not recreational drug use. This was hardcore stuff that they got. But this was rampant in the NBA in the 1980s, even going back to the 70s. There were guys who had cocaine problems. Some of them overcame them. Some did not. And here's Roy Tarpley dying at 50 of cirrhosis of the liver, and Michael Ray Richardson, at least he lived to be 70 years old, passing away from prostate cancer. But I remember seeing him play, and I remember how he changed the game. And I remember, as a 6'5" guard playing point guard, that was big at a time when Magic was still in school. Magic comes out, and even when they are both in the league at the same time, who leads the league in assists? Michael Ray Richardson, and probably could have gone down with Magic and John Stockton as one of the great point guards of all time, had he been able to keep his nose clean, as they say. But rest in peace. Apparently raised a great family and lived to be a relatively old 70. All right, coming up, more from the Commanders as they are practicing in Madrid to get ready for the Sunday game against the Miami Dolphins. And Mark Schlereth with theories on why offense is so stinky in the NFL right now. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. You know the saying, win in Rome? How about win in Italy? Well, win in Italy. Why not have your practices at the facilities of Real Madrid? Why not, if you're the coach of the Commanders, show up for your news conference in a jersey for the Madrid Broncos of the European League of Football? Yeah, they got real football over there, not just the ones where you kick the soccer ball. Interesting stuff from Quinn's first news conference over there. We'll play some of that, talk about the injury updates, including for Terry McLaurin, and even Noah Brown has made the trip. Doesn't mean he's going to play, but I'm sure he'll have some nice wine, some nice food, and work out with the team, and we'll see what happens on Sunday. They remain 2.5-point underdogs, even though, man, they're running out of players. Again, there is some good news. Will Harris is there, and they've opened up the 21-day window on him. Now, he's not going to play this week. He's coming off a broken leg, but I wonder with the bye week coming up next week if he might be on the field against the Broncos on the 30th. I mean, they're playing out the string at this point, but collecting a couple of wins might be nice. Are we at the point where we start talking about draft position? Maybe, but I don't think it's quite there. Anyway, with this change of venue going over there, I believe Dan Quinn as a coach has coached in overseas games before. If it wasn't when he was a head coach with Atlanta, it's when he was with a number of other teams, Seattle, Dallas, wherever else he's been, to go to these overseas games. But now he's running the show as they are now there. And as I say, he showed up at this Madrid Broncos jersey and kind of had to explain how this works to the Madrid media covering maybe American football for some of them for the first time.
For those of you covering the team, for the first time, a week layout in an NFL game usually consists of a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, Saturday. And so the Wednesday is the first day of putting in a game plan, some practice against one another to get your skills right. Thursday and Friday, more of the situational work, third downs and red zone. And then you tie the whole thing together again Saturday in preparation for the game. So I just wanted to give you that layout of what an NFL week typically looks like.
Which we know from following this week to week. The reporters know that. There were a couple of questions from reporters from Madrid based there, but the local media has followed, including Barry Zerluga of the Post.
As you look at the last month or so and figure out everything that has not gone the right way, do you feel like there are foundational problems in roster and personnel, or is it really just execution?
I really feel it's execution. That's where I do feel that way, Barry. And the reason why, I've seen where it hits good and I've seen where it doesn't. So had we not seen where we could hit the marks, I'd feel otherwise. So that's what we're digging in hard on, to have this time together, here on this trip, to do those things. That's important for us. But that's what I've been digging in the hardest, man. We want all this dog competing, but, man, we want it with the discipline to get it right as well.
He could have gone the snark route. Remember John McKay coaching the 0-16 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and somebody asked him about execution, and he said, yeah, I think that's a good idea. He didn't do that. I don't think he's in a joking mood after losing 5 straight. But, is it execution or is it players? Terry McLaurin is going to miss yet another game. This will be the 8th game missed in the last 9. And Quinn was asked about, what's the deal here? You brought him on the trip with you, but you've already ruled him out. And, when is he going to play again, essentially?
He's here, and he'll do some of the movement, and begin like the on-field portions of the rehab. So the first couple weeks he was not able to do that. And so now he's able to begin some of the on-field portions of the rehab. And so that'll take the build-up time to do that. But we're glad he's here taking the next step on the on-field side. So sometimes these injuries take longer than you want, and they're not predictable to say it's going to be this set time. And so we're just going to continue to say, okay, next step, next step, next step. And so the on-field portion is a good sign. Okay, we can now take the next steps.
Nobody asked about Noah Brown, who's also there. I don't think he's eligible to come off the injured list. But that's, as positive as you can get. Maybe by the Denver game, you're going to have your 2 top receivers back on the field, which you have not had since week 1 of the season. And that's also been a big factor in all of this. And Will Harris also, I should mention, was there. He's coming off the broken leg. I think I did mention that. But Will Harris could possibly return now that they've opened up what they call the 21-day window to make a decision whether to activate him. It looks like they're moving it in that direction. All right, some NBA to talk about here before we get to the Nico Harrison firing. The league has announced what we've been expecting for a long time for the get ready to yawn, the All-Star game, which has become an absolute joke in recent years. They probably should get rid of it, like they've gotten rid of the Pro Bowl in the NFL, but they're going with the format U.S. against the world. And they're going to have a 3-team format featuring 8-man rosters, 2 which will be made up of American players, a third of international selections, a couple of changes as to how those players will be selected. 5 starters, 7 reserves from each conference with a combination of fans, media, and players voting for the starters and the coaches picking the reserves, kind of like they do it in baseball. But what happens if the 24 doesn't break down like they want it to with 16 American and 8 international players? if the player pool doesn't reflect that split, they say the 16-8, Commissioner Adam Silver will name extra players to the roster to get to the minimum of 16 Americans or the minimum of 8 international players. So it may be more than 24, just to make the numbers work. So if there are like 14 Americans and 10 international players, Silver would name 2 more Americans to get to the 16-player limit. And if it was an 18-6 split, he would name 2 international players to get to the 8-player minimum. So there's that. The only thing that I find encouraging about this, and I have found as you probably have as well, the NBA All-Star Game to be completely unwatchable. They've turned it into a joke. And when you have a team scoring 200 points, that's not basketball. The only thing I like about this is, and the NBC has it back now, you know that NBC has the NBA, and so it's not going to be on TNT. I don't know if ESPN ever had the All-Star Game. I'm not sure. But this year it's going to be at 5 o'clock. Okay, that's fine. So you don't have to stay up late to watch this nonsense. So at 5 o'clock in February, when we're through with football and all that, you get to watch the All-Star Game after something that will be pretty good. Team USA hockey. Okay. U.S. playing in the Olympics in hockey. You'll want to see that, and you'll stick around for the NBA All-Star Game before 12-minute quarters as they go, I guess, to the regular rules on that. But those quarters will be played in a far different manner. The first 3 quarters will be made up of round-robin play featuring the 3 teams, allowing each of them to play twice. The 4th quarter will be the game featuring the 2 best teams after the round-robin action. That's a lot of Michigas in there, but February 13th is when they kick off All-Star Weekend. That's when they have like the rookie game and the futures game and all that stuff. And then the Sunday game, which would be, I guess, the 15th of February, week after the Super Bowl, you're going to be able to see U.S. versus the world. It's their last gasp. If this becomes a joke, I think everybody's got to agree. Let's get rid of it. Let's give everybody off a week. Players go to Cabo. And if we take the NBA off the radar for a week, so be it. But if the players don't want to play, I don't think there's any reason that they should do it. Nico Harrison got the boot yesterday. I think we were doing the show. I think it was in the 9 o'clock hour when this came down. And this is one of those where you go, well, yeah, but what took you so long to do this? This is 10 months after Nico made the most ridiculous trade that anybody can remember in the NBA, trading Luka Doncic at 25 in his prime for an aging Anthony Davis who's always hurt. And fans have been killing him for these 10 months. It finally came to a head on Monday night when they lost to Milwaukee at home, 116-114, and the fans were chanting, "Fire Nico." So yesterday morning finally became official, and yesterday afternoon on PTI, Tony and Mike took a look at it.
Fan chants of "Fire Nico," you can hear them. They rained down last night in a loss to Milwaukee, in which the Mavericks blew a 13-point lead to fall to 3-8. Their worst start in 7 years. Tone, you said Harrison's trade of Luka should lead to his firing.
Yes.
It has now. Mm-hmm. Is it justified? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you'll say it is.
It is, yeah.
But how do you feel about the timing?
Well, let me get to the justification. Okay. Is it justified? It should have happened a long time ago. It's late. Okay, that's the worst trade I have ever seen in my life.
There are many who would concur.
Just a terrible, terrible trade. And by the way, where have you ever seen a hometown crowd chant for the firing of a GM? Like, they don't even know the names of GMs most of the time.
Yeah, this is bad.
That is amazing. That's Tony, an amazing thing.
The home games are depressing. If you talk to people who were there in Dallas, they come away thinking, oh, my God, this was unpleasant. That's how bad it is.
So let me go to the trade again. So he trades Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. Luka Doncic, a great player and a fan favorite, right? Anthony Davis gets hurt all the time, and his derisive nickname is Street Clothes. Yeah. Okay, and so now Luka's team, without LeBron playing a minute, is 8-3, and that's pretty much all Luka. And Dallas's team is 3-8. They're 3-8 at the moment. And the worst part for Dallas, for ownership, is that people have stopped going. They're being hurt in the pocketbook. So they had to do this, and they should have done this before.
I feel bad because the trade is not a trade that any of us, it seems, would have made. I don't get to know Nico a little bit. Nico Harrison didn't do this by himself. And I'm not going to sit here and act like he did it by himself.
The owner has to agree.
Because I know better.
Owner has to agree.
The owner didn't just agree. The owner was involved, okay? That's what I'm told, and I know, and I'll bet on that every day.
But he's not going to fire himself.
No, he's not going to fire himself.
No.
And so Nico has to take accountability. I'm not saying he shouldn't.
That's right.
And the home games, I've started to watch Dallas because I thought if Anthony Davis was out there, God help me, if Cooper Flagg was great away as the number one choice, and he isn't.
Not yet.
And this notion of him playing point guard, Jason Kidd, a great coach, I don't know what the hell that's about. Because he ain't a point guard, and he ain't going to never be a point guard
and
ever.
Kyrie Irving is not playing.
Kyrie's hurt and not there. And all those players on that team, P.J. Washington, Derek Lively, they're all dependent on a playmaking guard, and that ain't Cooper Flagg.
They had one.
So it's doomed.
They had two.
They had two.
They had two. Now they have
none.
Now they have none. And that trade hangs over that team and that building like a curtain.
It does.
It's terrible.
It does. I just don't want to hear Nico being here. Where's the owner? Where's he? Take some accountability.
I'll tell you
You're
where
the billionaire.
I'll tell you where the owner
billionaire bully. Take some blame.
The owner is the guy who just fired.
And he's hiding
Nico.
behind Nico.
Yeah, and it's not Mark Cuban anymore, and I don't think Mark Cuban would have let that deal go through. If you heard me say that Madrid is in Italy, and I may have said that, you know that it's in Spain, and I should probably know that it's in Spain, and I know that it's in Spain, but maybe I said Italy. So whatever. The Commanders are in Spain. They're in Madrid. They are playing on Sunday against the Miami Dolphins, and they remain 2.5-point underdogs. I'm really surprised the line hasn't moved a little bit. Now, maybe it's because people still have the hangover from the way the Dolphins started. It looked like Mike McDaniel was going to get the boot, and I think there are more people. And it's not going to happen, but there are more people calling for the head of Dan Quinn now than Mike McDaniel, and they actually worked together on the same staff. I think it was in Houston, and Mike McDaniel has talked about this, that Dan Quinn helped him to overcome his alcoholism. Well, I guess you're never fully it's always you're a recovering alcoholic, but that was the reason that Mike McDaniel was booted out of Houston after going to work for Kyle Shanahan was that he had an alcohol issue, and he has overcome that and now coaching. And Dan Quinn was very helpful about that, and he talked about that in a news conference today. How much it meant to him to see Mike overcome the problems that he's been having and to be still coaching in the NFL. Now, that could change at the end of the year, but Sunday's game may be it's a must-win for both coaches. Let's put it that way. I think we're at the point now where we really can't talk about must-wins for the Commanders anymore. Unless they win 6 in a row and then they get to 7 and it's 7 to get into the playoffs. But having already lost 7 games through 10 and 5 in a row, it doesn't look like it's a great situation. Reading some of the tweets from the beat people covering, the players are having trouble adjusting to the time. And Sam Cosme said he woke up at 5 a.m. Well, some of us get up earlier than that every day, but he obviously doesn't. And he said he woke up and he was hungry. So he looked on TikTok to find out nearby restaurants in Spain. And one thing about Spain that they're known for is the tapas. That's the small plates. You bring in all these football players, they got to get a lot of small plates there to fill up. A guy like Cosme is 300 pounds. How many tapas plates is he going to eat? Probably a bunch of them. But I don't know how the meals are being done. I'm sure they bring their own cooks and all that stuff, and they probably have time to go out and see the city and stuff like that. Okay, that does it for me. Bram is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.